This is Chengwu Village, Xuwen County in Zhanjiang. The Coast Guard and all the various departments, they're just forcibly destroying our seafood, not paying us a single cent in compensation.
The conflict between fishermen in Chengwu Village in Zhanjiang and the Chinese authorities has continued to escalate, expanding from land to sea. Following a violent confrontation with police in the early hours of December 3rd, villagers engaged in intense clashes at sea over 2 consecutive days, from December 5th to the 6th. The villagers used fishing boats to intercept government enforcement vessels and prevent the destruction of their offshore fish cages, resulting in what resembled a small-scale naval battle. Video footage shows villagers steering multiple fishing boats to form a blockade at sea, intercepting maritime law enforcement ships, attempting to enter Chengwu's waters and demolish the fish cages. The villagers even used high-pressure water cannons to spray official vessels, escalating the tension on site.
Those fishermen and those who farm seafood, we've invested hundreds of thousands. All our life's work is here, and they won't compensate us at all. Everything's been strictly enforced.
The recent sea resistance in Zang Jiang Xuwen County was sparked by the government's Coral Reef Protection Zone cleanup operation. Upon closer inspection of the videos posted online, the official ships visible in the footage bore the markings of Guangdong Maritime Law Enforcement, indicating they were not the Coast Guard. The Chinese Coast Guard is a paramilitary force under the Public Security Ministry, which became affiliated with the armed police after 2018. In contrast, the maritime law enforcement teams belong to administrative agencies. Official sources reveal that the Guangdong Provincial Maritime Comprehensive Law Enforcement Team was established on November 16, 2020, under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs of Guangdong, consolidating enforcement activities for different sectors. Under the Chinese Communist Party, not only are notorious urban management teams common, but in recent years, a rural management team has also emerged. These teams have been involved in illegal activities such as cutting down trees, seizing livestock, and destroying crops, which has sparked public outcry. Similarly, the maritime law enforcement forces are becoming a tool for the government to impose authoritarian control over the fishing community. Fish cage farming is a traditional way of making a living for local fishermen, and the primary source of income for them is cultivating sea snails. However, the government plans to dismantle these fish cages without providing compensation, severely threatening the villagers' livelihoods. Since late September, villagers in Chengwu Village have been protesting the demolition efforts. Their resistance has intensified over the past few months as the local government continues its cleanup campaign. On the morning of October 15, a group of police officers secretly entered the village at night, attempting to arrest a rights activist. The villagers discovered the operation and detained the police officers and their vehicles, leading to an hour-long standoff until the authorities were forced to release the activist. Video footage of the incident shows villagers celebrating their victory by setting off fireworks, with one villager posting online, "We won the first round and the whole village stood strong." The villagers' resistance against the government's actions has garnered support from netizens, who praise their unity and resilience. One comment read, "Well done, only unity can counter them." Another added, "The villagers are incredibly united and unshakable." Local reports indicate that villagers have called back young workers from outside the area to join their protests against the authorities. On December 3rd, local authorities deployed hundreds of police officers and government personnel to surround the village and suppress the protests. Social media videos show large numbers of fully armed special police attempting to quash the demonstrations, with villagers using water cannons to resist the police. At around 2 a.m., police entered villagers' homes without presenting legal documents or search warrants, arresting rights activists and injuring 2 villagers, who required hospitalization. Police also used fire extinguishers against protesting villagers, causing several women to faint from the chemicals. The villagers condemned the police's violent actions, claiming that their fundamental rights have been severely violated. One said, "We rely on the sea for our livelihood, and the government is destroying our fish cages without compensation. How are we supposed to survive?" The conflict in Zhanjiang is one of many such incidents across China in recent years, particularly since Xi Jinping's rise to power, which has seen an intensification of authoritarian governance. On September 27th this year, hundreds of villagers in Xiangning County, Henan, surrounded a police station in Zhongshan town to demand the release of detainees. Villagers revealed that 5 villages around Shangshan Lake have relied on the lake for their livelihood for generations. Recently, local officials, in collusion with businesses, have been preparing to destroy the lake and extract sand, threatening the villagers' way of life. The villagers have vowed to fight for their rights. In recent months, there have been multiple incidents in China where rights activists have surrounded police stations to demand the release of detained individuals. On October 8th, in Pengjia Village in Shandong Province, villagers protesting for compensation related to land acquisitions surrounded the local police station, leading to clashes. The protests erupted after local officials diverted over 30 million yuan in compensation funds into financial products for personal gain. Despite multiple attempts to resolve the issue, villagers have been unsuccessful in securing a fair resolution. Some were even arrested for petitioning in Beijing. On the evening of September 23rd, in Zhanjiang, Henan, property owners in Longyua Huacheng residential area surrounded a nearby police station to demand the release of a fellow owner who had been detained. Earlier that day, the owners had initiated a protest against the property management's forced sale of underground parking spaces without ownership titles. The protest escalated when the police detained one of the owners. In Xintang Town, Guangzhou, residents of Dandun Village were angered by the installation of parking fee checkpoints at various intersections. On December 1st, hundreds of tenants protested, dismantling all 28 checkpoints. According to social media reports, the parking fee system had just been introduced, and by nightfall, hundreds of residents gathered to protest the unreasonable charges. The protesters damaged the checkpoint glass, prompting a large number of police and government personnel to respond. The fees were immediately cancelled after an official announcement ending the one-day policy. In November this year, villagers in Baisha Village, Guangxi, clashed with urban management officers and special police while protesting the illegal occupation of land and forced construction by the authorities. On November 11, the situation escalated when villagers, armed with sticks and farming tools, fought with special police forces. The next day, more police were deployed and the authorities violently suppressed the protest. In August this year, a large-scale confrontation occurred between delivery workers and police in Hangzhou, sparked by an incident where a security guard confiscated a delivery driver's car key, fined him 200 yuan, and demanded the driver kneel in front of him. The incident led to protests from delivery workers, resulting in violent clashes with the police. On July 15th, in Shuwen County, Guangdong, homeowners from Dinglong residential area once again protested outside the local government offices. The protests were sparked by developers' failure to complete the construction of the buildings, which led to multiple confrontations with police. According to data from Freedom House's China Dissent Monitor, protests related to economic grievances surged in the third quarter of this year, with 826 recorded incidents, marking a historic high. This is a 31% increase compared to the same period last year. At least 3/4 of the protests were driven by economic dissatisfaction. It is worth noting that in the past, those facing injustice could rely on rights lawyers for assistance, but in recent years, the repression of rights lawyers has significantly increased. This year marks the 9th anniversary of the 709 incident, during which over 100 rights lawyers and activists were detained, interrogated, or subjected to other forms of harassment by the authorities. 9 years later, the situation for rights lawyers and their families has worsened, and they continue to face severe repression. Approximately 10 lawyers are still in detention or serving sentences. On October 29th, a Chinese court sentenced well-known rights lawyer Yu Wenshen to 3 years in prison for inciting to subvert state power, and his wife, Xu Yan, was sentenced to 1 year and 9 months. Prominent rights lawyer Gao Zhisheng has been forcibly disappeared by the Chinese authorities since August 2017. His whereabouts remain unknown. Xu Ziyong, leader of the New Citizens Movement, was sentenced to 14 years for subversion of state power and has reportedly suffered torture in prison. One rights activist in China noted that without lawyers dedicated to upholding the law, China's rule of law is in decline. He said, "When the window for civilization is blocked, what remains is barbarism. This is the current reality of China's legal system." Chinese political expert Yue Shan stated that by suppressing freedom of thought and speech and targeting lawyers who defend citizens' rights, the CCP has created a societal pressure cooker. Those who do not seek to retaliate may turn to violent revolution as a means of resistance. In May, the statue of Li Zicheng, leader of the late Ming Dynasty peasant uprising, was removed from the West Guanghan Island in Beijing's Changping district. Authorities claimed it was being relocated to Li's hometown in Shaanxi. At the same time, in Changsha, netizens noticed that the statue of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, another peasant movement from the late Qing dynasty, was also removed. The timing of these removals sparked speculation, as both uprisings share themes of rebellion and peasant struggles. Many netizens have commented, hinting that the CCP may be fearful of a potential uprising. On November 14th, the Ministry of Public Security held a press conference warning that individuals sharing information online about how to manufacture firearms would face criminal prosecution. This announcement triggered extensive discussion on social media, with many users suggesting the authorities were afraid. Some joked that water can carry a boat, but it can also turn it over, while others humorously discussed how to collaborate in making guns. Despite this, some still prefer to pursue peaceful methods of protest. In November, hundreds of investors who suffered losses from the Evergrande bankruptcy staged a 3-day protest in Zhanjiang, demanding updates on the investigation into Evergrande. This protest followed the onset of the company's financial crisis. According to Reuters, more than 500 investors participated in the protests, which were conducted in smaller groups at various government offices to avoid open demonstrations and police repression. Sources revealed that the protests followed official channels to avoid angering authorities. Political commentator Wang Qingmin noted that public demonstrations, such as holding placards and petitioning, are significant steps forward and deserve recognition. However, China's ongoing social issues, such as wage arrears, unfinished buildings, unfair law enforcement, high unemployment, expensive healthcare, educational pressure, and inadequate pension systems, stem from the lack of true power vested in the people. The ruling class is detached from the public, creating a divide between the government and citizens. The White Paper movement that emerged at the end of 2022 was a non-violent form of protest where people gathered with blank sheets of paper and chanted slogans against the CCP and Xi Jinping. This movement led to the end of China's strict COVID-19 lockdown policies. US-based scholar Wu Guoguang wrote in an article that in recent years, the CCP has further tightened its control over speech and social space, using the internet to reinforce its information and speech controls. Through strengthening social stability mechanisms, the CCP seeks to maintain its legitimacy, but this legitimacy is sustained by violence. As the economy worsens, the government may face a breakdown in its ability to maintain its repression mechanisms, potentially leading to a violent revolution like the Ming Dynasty's Li Zicheng uprising. Professor Feng Chongyi of the University of Technology, Sydney, warned that if China's economic outlook does not improve, public dissatisfaction will deepen. The CCP's establishment of new enforcement teams, including urban, rural, and maritime management, will only exacerbate social conflict. These measures are intended to prevent non-political protests from evolving into political movements, but when mass resistance arises, the government will be unable to suppress it. Exiled former Inner Mongolia official Du Wen analyzed that the CCP fears three major forms of popular uprisings: large-scale social protests, mass incidents, and local riots. At the March 2024 National People's Congress, the CCP announced a public security budget of almost 228 billion yuan, marking a 1.4% increase. However, this increase is much smaller compared to the 7.2% rise in military spending. Some analysts believe that the decline in central government revenue has hindered its ability to allocate resources to stability maintenance. However, well-known independent commentator Tang Jingyuan has analyzed that while the growth rate of stability maintenance spending has slowed, the government is unlikely to relax its control over the population, and the total amount spent on maintaining stability continues to rise. Observers have noted that in recent years, President Xi Jinping has aggressively consolidated power. Through military reforms, he has moved control over the deployment of the armed police from local authorities to the Central Military Commission. The management authority of the reserve forces and provincial military districts has also been centralized under the army. In June 2020, the reserve forces, which had previously been under dual leadership by both the military and local governments, were brought fully under control of the Central Military Commission, further eroding the military power of local governments. However, Xi's consolidation of military power is not only aimed at external defense, but also at internal repression. During a meeting with the National People's Congress military and armed police representatives on March 7, 2022, Xi called for the military to strengthen the party's leadership, focus on preparing for warfare, and assist local governments in maintaining stability, as well as handling emergencies swiftly. In early April 2022, in response to the lockdown in Shanghai, the Chinese government deployed large numbers of military and armed police personnel to assist with pandemic control and maintaining order. Shanghai residents reported that many residential complexes were patrolled by armed police during the lockdown. Whether it is the so-called party army, the police, urban management teams, rural management teams, or maritime enforcement squads, these oppressive institutions are now facing significant internal challenges. Current affairs commentator Xu Ke pointed out that due to widespread corruption, the Chinese military has been undergoing constant purges, resulting in severe internal conflicts. Even close allies of Xi Jinping, such as Miao Hua, who was in charge of military personnel, have been removed, leading to instability within the military. Xu also noted that in recent years, China's economic decline, escalating local government debt, and financial difficulties have led to widespread reports of salary cuts. The so-called law enforcement teams, such as the urban management, rural management, and maritime enforcement teams, are likely facing challenges in paying their own salaries. These teams, which have become notorious for overreach, are increasingly engaging in law enforcement under the guise of collecting money, thus stoking even greater public resentment.